Butter, you're the reason why I am my ways. You're the reason why I rip my shirts, why I eat at the buffet. Butter, you got your very own kind of nice. We all live inside a butter world. Oh, butter, butter, gonna eat it by the stick tonight. Gonna eat out this world. Oh, butter, I'm about to take a bite, 'cause I want that salty cream. What I dream about all night. Butter dreaming. I'm about to take a bite, 'cause I want that salty cream. What I dream about all.
All right, welcome everyone to another live stream with Butterfield, and we have a great guest, Meghan Stark from Triangle S, and my brother over here, Anderson. He's also a guest
On this episode.
on this episode. So yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Yeah,
everyone
how's
for tuning
everything?
in.
Yeah. Really excited to talk to Meghan. How's everything with you, Meghan?
It's going great. It's nice and sunny and actually warm today, so it's a great day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice. How's the winter been so far?
It's been a good winter. We've had a lot of snow and a lot of cold, and it's a typical Idaho winter.
Oh my God.
What
That's
is
dreadful.
warm? What is warm in Idaho?
This time of year,
Yeah.
for us, warm is like anything that's 20 degrees and warmer than that.
Wow.
Yikes.
that's not warm.
Yeah, I think it's like 29 right now, and we were out there in a t-shirt earlier feeding, so
Wow.
Oh my God.
Here I am freezing at like 35, 39 in Massachusetts.
Well, you guys get a lot of moisture. We are dry as a bone here, so we don't have any. We're like negative moisture. So I mean, if we have any moisture, we're like freezing to death. So
Oh, I see.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, Meghan, so yeah, you and your family are Triangle S. So, we have you on because, you were one of the first few people that reached out to us. And, in terms of partnering with you. So, very happy to have you here. So I wanted to give you a chance to kind of tell us a little bit more about Triangle S and how it came to be, how to get started, when it gets started, all the good stuff.
yeah, of course. We're so excited to be part of all this and to be partnering with you guys. We love partnering with like-minded people that have very similar beliefs as us and are on kind of a same track. Like that's what we love. Doesn't matter like how big your social media, how big you are. It doesn't matter that to us. It's just a matter of like your impact and how passionate you are. So we're so excited to be part of this with you guys and along the journey with you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, we are too.
Yeah, we love
okay,
beef.
so
And you make beef.
I
so-
know, right? Like,
Yeah.
honestly, who doesn't love beef?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, there's a specific group of people.
I know. I know. Trust me, I know.
Oh yeah, you probably get some crazy DMs or stuff like that.
Oh man, yes.
The crazies.
Yeah.
There's always a bunch.
Yeah. Luckily, I'm guessing that there hasn't been any activists that have tried to interrupt your operations.
No,
Make it all the way there.
It's interesting. I grew up in Northern California, so like the animal activists, I grew up with them. I mean, I grew up around them. I grew up knowing how to handle them, how to deal with them. And the thing though is like you got to come from a place of understanding when it comes to that. And I understand why they're passionate about certain things and why they have like the ideas that they have. So it's not so much like an argument for me because I know how to deter it to be like, okay. But, you know, there's extremes in every industry. So I can't say one's worse than the other.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a very, very smart take. I love it. I love it. Makes me feel like there's more room for me to grow as a person, to kind of adopt more of your stance when it comes to stuff like this.
It's tough. I mean, we do.
Yeah.
Trevor and I both have our personal opinions, and everybody has to have your own take and your own personal opinion. That's what makes us individual. The difference is learning how to maneuver around the extremes and people's very passionate opinions, and also having an understanding that all of us in any industry or anything, that's what makes America America. Like we're all free to have our own opinions and our own everything, and we're very fortunate to be where we're at and to be in a situation we're in, and also to have amazing support from every aspect, coming from every direction. We do have like very passionate, I wouldn't say they're PETA activists, but they are activists that are customers of ours because of this situation of us being very understanding and knowing that we do treat our animals humanely, and that's the purpose, is being as humane and kind and giving these animals the best life that they can live. So it's just having a different understanding and a different take on things, but also having a hands-on experiencing all of it, from each extreme, to understand that I get it.
Yeah. Wow. You're very compassionate. I think that must be, that must be like a farmer skill, right? Just something that you just develop.
It is. There's a huge, and there always has been a huge words are hard right now. So, I don't know the right word at the moment, but people have this idea that ranchers and farmers are cruel, and we just have massive production, and we don't care about the land and the livestock. And we don't care about people. Basically, we're just in this for mass and money. And y'all, like, I'm going to tell you right now, that is not the case at all. Like, you're going to have that in any industry. You're going to have people that are like that in farming and ranching, but it's because of this industry that we have environmental impacts, because we have all these environmental things that are actually happening in a positive manner, because people like myself and more are trying to make a difference for the positive.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's so great to hear, because, from our side of things, so we're like mainly carnivore diet like advocates, right? So I'm sure you've heard about carnivore, like, or animal-based
done
diets.
it several times. Yeah, we love carnivore.
Nice, amazing. Yeah, and people that just like, I think it's just a great way for people to realize the connection between food and health, right? I think many of us growing up just don't have that connection. We just see food as this fuel that you shove down your pie hole, and then like however you feel afterwards has nothing to do with the food you're eating. But going on this journey, this health journey, I feel like many people start to get curious about the way that food is made and become more appreciative about it, right? And so one of our goals is being able to highlight the hard work that people like you actually put into the food, right? Because many people are just disconnected from the way that food is made, right? So I think opportunities like this to get your story out there is it's going to be very valuable, and hopefully we'll get some people to see the face behind Triangle S, right? Learn the stories, feel a connection with you, and then, buy some beef from you. As everyone, go buy beef from Triangle S,
Absolutely.
Yeah, but Meghan, why don't you tell us, how this all got started? Was this something that you were always interested in? So, I read on your website like you got started in like 2011. What was the story leading up to that?
Yeah, it's quite the story. I actually was born and raised in California, and grew up in town for the first, I don't know, 10 years of my life. And surprisingly enough, like I had family and friends that were ranchers, and so basically my out was living and hanging out with all of them growing up as a little girl. So I was never in town very much because I didn't want to be home. And so have like a broad experience, like when I was growing up, I grew up in a very rough neighborhood. It was a very, very rough neighborhood. We had shootings all the time. It was a very typical, it was a typical kind of ghetto situation. A lot of experience growing up, seeing inner city firsthand when I was little, knowing what inner city kids deal with on a day-to-day basis. But I had an out. I had a way to get away from it. And that was ranching. That was raising livestock. And I've been doing that. I've literally been doing that my whole life. I just didn't live it till I was about 12 when we moved.
Oh, wow.
And my parents got an opportunity to buy some land, and we changed that whole life completely different, and started raising cattle and horses and sheep. Like I said, since I was a little girl. And then as soon as I moved to a little town called Elk Grove, that's pretty much when I hit the ground running. Literally never spent time in town, always was on someone's ranch, whether it was my own, our own situation at home or other people's ranches, neighbors, anywhere that I could get my hands on and learn. I did. I was, man, that's just been my passion since I was a very, very little girl, and have been given some pretty darn rad opportunities because of that throughout my entire life, because of that passion. And so that's kind of how, like, for me personally, how that started. My husband, on the other hand, he grew up around it more so than I did. He was born and raised pretty much in it. He kind of grew up in town, but they lived in a different community. They lived in like Twin Falls, Idaho, very, very in Shoshone, and very ranching communities. And he pretty much spent most of his life on farms and ranches. And so I had moved. I was married once before, and we sold our ranch at the time there in California and moved to Idaho. Things evolved. And then my now husband, Trevor, and I had met in 2011. And that's how kind of that started there. And what happened is when him and I met, we had nothing. We had horses and dogs. That's what we had. And so what we did is we actually would it's called day working, where we would work for other ranches on a day-to-day basis. So every day we get a phone call and say, hey, we're going to work for this ranch this day and blah, 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 blah. And so that's what we did for several years. And we both Trevor and I always had this vision of having our own ranch, like us running our own ranch, me having the ranch again, like I used to have years ago with my previous life. And the struggle that we came with was the vision. We had the vision, but we didn't know how to get there. We didn't know how to start. We didn't know how to go from nothing to having what we have now and growing. And fortunately, we have a lot of contacts in this industry. And they were so fortunate. We were so fortunate to come up with these ideas and have other ranchers and other people locally here support us in our vision, and they would give us ideas and they'd help us out. Even just just so much support. And we just kind of fell into it. Once COVID hit, COVID opened up the doors to people like us, where we were able to. COVID was kind of a catch-22. It was kind of a crappy deal because it was COVID. It was this thing that went around and all that stuff, but it also was an amazing opportunity, an amazing thing that happened too around the world, where it actually opened up people's eyes to where they were getting their food from. And, you know, we were having these shortages around the country, and then here pretty soon prices were skyrocketing for your everyday chicken or your everyday beef or pork, that there's nothing special about it. And people were really starting to pay attention to what they were consuming and what they were putting into their food and what they were putting into their own bodies and all these things. And so really since COVID, that's when we hit the ground running. That's when Trevor and I decided to make it official. We made our ranch official. And we literally have just exploded from there. You know, you have your struggles, and we've had our struggles, and we continue to have, you know, challenges that hit us every day, as every business owner does. But we're making it work, and we're telling the story every day of the everyday things that we deal with. And I mean, that's basically like how it started. We just kind of fell into it. We've always wanted this. We just didn't know how to quite start. And so we were able to start with providing meat for local people here locally in Idaho. And then it literally within like a month, like blew up from there to California. People from all over the country were getting a hold of us. It was like, okay, this is obviously what we're supposed to do.
Wow. Nice. Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like, yeah, it was a catch-22, but it was like a wake-up call for everyone to be like, where do we need to get beef? We need to get food from someone somewhere. And you were there. You were very opportune that you were there ready to supply. So that's great. Yeah. And yeah, it's interesting because you grew up with cattle, horses, and sheep. But from what I understand right now, it's mainly beef that you have, right?
Yep. So we raise beef. We have quarter horses too. So we've always raised horses. That's kind of just been like our little mini passion that we just kind of like to play with, not really to be profitable or anything. That's just like our little hobby on the side. But the cattle thing has been that is I can talk for days about that.
Yeah.
Beef is our thing. So we raise beef cattle. We specialize in Angus and Angus cross breeds, and basically English breeds is what we are specialized in. And then we actually just go ahead.
Sorry. So Angus is from the UK.
Yeah, they originally, So Angus and Simmental, Hereford, those breeds that you generally hear all the time, those are actually English breeds. Those actually originally came from England or British, Britain, like the UK. They actually came from Europe originally, eons and eons ago. So that's what we say when we say English breeds. They come from there, because there's other breeds that come from like Argentina and like Africa. Like there's other breeds there. So that's why we kind of region it towards like what region they originated from.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I'm not too familiar with the breeds of cattle. For me, beef is beef.
Yeah, and this is just me. I mean, this is what I do for a living. So.
No, I love it. It's like I'm learning. So no, that's good. And yeah, the other one is crossbreed, the Angus crossbreed. What is that?
So a crossbreed is just kind of like, think of it as like people. You've got somebody who may be African American and then you've got somebody who's say from Ireland, and they mix. It's the same thing with cattle. So we've got Angus and Angus breed, and then our typical cross is Angus and another breed that's called Simmental, which is another black breed. They're just basically like a bigger version of an Angus.
Oh.
So you have these different breeds, just like people, and we just kind of intermingle them. And in hopes to get a better product is the goal for us is different. It's to get a better product. And so we kind of play with some genetics to see which one gets us a better product in the end. And there's some that have been an epic fail. There's some that have been an absolute win. That's the nice thing about the situation that Trevor and I are in, is we are in a situation we can experiment. We can experiment with different breeds and different bloodlines to see what product we get in the end, if it ends up being better marbled or if it ends up not being better marbled, and there's so many different traits each breed has, just like a human. And so we just kind of keep track of that, and we're able to play with it and just see what product we can come up with.
Wow.
Yeah. So at your farm, you breed the cattle, you see them from like birth all the way to processing?
Most of the time. So half of it is we raise our own, and then the other half is we actually have partnerships set up with other local ranches here in Idaho, where we purchase their calves, and then we raise them from from when they're weaned. We just have a certain criteria. They have to be natural, can never have antibiotics, hormones. Like, we have certain criteria that they have to meet. And then if they meet that criteria and we have the demand, then we buy calves from other local ranches around here.
Wow, that's pretty cool, because it's you're basically like experimenting, and I don't know, it just feels like a discovery process, right?
It is. It can be. It's a process.
It's science, right? Practical
It literally
science.
is. It literally is just a whole big pile of science.
Yeah. I prefer this. I prefer this over people trying to like manufacture the impossible burger, right? In a laboratory.
Man, I could go on for days.
But
yeah, we could too.
I know.
Yeah.
That subject. Whew. I don't know if we
Yeah.
want to open up that can of worms.
Yeah. Now, on the topic of the cattle breeds, we saw on your website, you also have this breed, the beefalo.
Yes, that's a new
Would you
one.
mind telling us what's that about? What's going on there?
Oh my goodness, that one literally was an accident. Literally was an accident. So we, Trevor and I have always wanted to raise bison. We've never been around them. The most we've been around bison is when we would ride horses. Like, I was riding horses for a horse trainer, and we would use bison for practicing on the horses. We'd use it for practice. That's the most I've ever been around them. So I was horseback. I never really had to deal with them outside of being horseback. So, anyways, Trevor and I have always loved bison. I mean, honestly, you see a bison, who doesn't think they're freaking radically cool? Like, they're just freaking cool, okay?
Yeah.
But who's
majestic
crazy enough to raise
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were like, you know what? Eventually it would be really neat to raise them and do, the same thing, have our own market for them. Well, in our research, we came across beefalo. Just randomly, came across beefalo. We're like, what the hell is that? And it's exactly what it is. It's a cross between bison and beef. It's literally a married cross between them. And so we did a bunch of research. We're like, you know what? This is interesting. Okay. And so we, without really thinking a ton about it, we just kind of dove into it. Got a hold of a guy here in Idaho, actually, that raises them. And we bought a couple calves from him just to start out. before we start on our own herd, and they're doing great. And then we decided that we're gonna try and cross them ourselves and do it ourselves. So literally, it was just by accident, but we're seeing a lot of excuse me. We're seeing a lot of interest and a lot of curiosity and a lot of just a ton of interest in it because it's so different. I mean, you're literally marrying the best of both together. We're going to see what happens with both. I mean, they're both so different though. You know, bison is extremely lean naturally, you know, unless you feed them out. There's ways you can actually kind of get around that. You can actually get a fair amount of marbling in them. But generally they're very, very lean and extremely beefy. Like they have a very distinct flavor. It's like a mix between wild game. You know, like if you've ever had moose, have you guys ever had moose before?
No.
Can't say I've tried moose. No.
So it's kind of like wild game, like an elk and moose meat with beef. Like it's kind of a little bit of both. And so we're like, you know, what if let's just try this out. I don't know. Let's just try this out and see what happens. And we've had a lot of interest, and it's just kind of it came to light very quickly that this is something that we need to do. The issue that we've come across is Trev and I are pretty, you know, we love to experiment. We love to see just kind of what happens with things. That's just who we are. We love to play around with things just to see what kind of product we can come and get at the end. That said, there are certain breeds that don't do as well on the beef side as far as getting the product that we tend to like. We like a lot of tenderness, a lot of flavor, and a lot of marbling. That is the goal for our product. Most of the beefalo beefalo that is out there, the beef side is typically breeds that we don't prefer to use for genetics. Like they don't produce the best product. So what that kind of in turn came to us doing our own. That's why we actually decided to just breed our own and start raising our own. So we can control the bloodlines and can control the quality.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds very.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, very advanced, right?
So you got the bison, like you got pure bison, and you crossbred them yourself. Like you grab like the Angus and the bison, and you.
Yep. So we have them.
And now you have your beefalo.
Yep. So it's a work in progress. It's a serious work in progress.
Yeah.
So we have our cows, our bison cows, and we have our beef cows. So we have them here, and then we have a couple bison bulls that are also here, and then beef bulls. So we have them all here. The thing the really, really tricky part about crossing beef and bison is genetically and biologically, they don't really want anything to do with each other. Like if you put a herd of bison, a wild herd of bison and a wild herd of beef out there, they will stay away from each other. They don't want to commingle.
Yeah.
So we're kind of we are dealing with a double-edged sword, because making that first initial cross, that 50-50 cross between a beef and a bison, is very tricky to do because they don't naturally want to be around each other. So we did attempt to cross our beef cows on bison bulls. Epic fail. Those bulls wanted nothing to do with our cows. So yeah, we did try it. And so because we were getting towards the end of the breeding season, we're like, we got to get these cows bred. Like, I'm not going to miss a breeding season just because these bulls don't want to breed them. So we ended up breeding our bison cows to bison bulls and our beef cows to beef bulls this year. And then next year is when we're going to try and breed them separately or breed them, intermingle them.
Yeah.
But we have some different tactics that we have to take to get it done, because it's not necessarily happening naturally. So we're just going to experiment. There's a whole lot of, it's literally, we're playing with fire. There's some genetic things there that are kind of tricky. So we have to be really careful, and just know the challenges that we're going to face when we do breed them together. So next year's the goal to try and get them to mingle and try and get them to breed, but we'll just see how it goes. It's going to be it's quite an experiment and quite an investment.
Just more romantic dates, walks on the beach.
Yes.
Candlelit
so
dinners.
A whole
really
lot of candlelight.
Yeah.
Really set the mood for them, and then
set up a movie theater. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're thinking about putting up like a radio out there and putting on a whole bunch of George Strait and all kinds of good, maybe some Barry Manilow out there, get them to think sexy.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's the missing component.
So yeah. So on that, I have a question about, because I saw this online, but I didn't look into it, just out of curiosity. Is there a difference between bison and the buffalo?
Massive. Massive.
Wow.
Yeah, that's probably a very ignorant question. Yeah, very ignorant question.
It is an awesome
It's for the
question.
listeners, for the viewers out there.
I love this question. It's the most simple answer too. So buffalo is like your buffalo from Asia and Africa. Like the water buffalo. That's buffalo. Bison is American, Great American bison. So you've got the big furry bison that are here.
Oh.
Those are bison. Buffalo or your water buffalo, and the weird looking buffalo that are over in Asia and Africa.
Interesting.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
And so,
wow, yeah.
Yeah, so buffalo actually, it just, for some reason, I think it was back in the late 1700s or something like that, when water buffalo were kind of introduced into the States ages and ages ago. The name just for some reason stuck, and people just started calling the bison that are here in the States, they just started calling them buffalo.
Wow. I mean, because you have Buffalo, New York, so you would think Buffalo is local to the US.
Yep.
I don't know where buffalo chicken wings come from, but buffalo hot sauce.
I don't know. I think buffalo chicken wings came from because of the location. I think didn't those basically get discovered there in Buffalo?
I think so too. I think
probably.
so too. That's why it kind of has an American feel to it.
Yeah.
The word buffalo.
Yep. And
I
then
guess
you had Buffalo
it's all meant to
Bills.
confuse us.
Yep. Yeah. It's the most simple answer, but it's kind of confusing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then, so to be clear, do you sell any bison on your website, or if anyone wanted to get some bison or beefalo meat?
Not yet.
What's the deal with that?
Not yet. Beefalo, yes.
Okay.
We just started with the beefalo, and then the bison. Bison, y'all, take twice as long as beef to feed out. So we are at least another year out before having bison meat. Now, technically, we have sources and we have people that we can get bison from that are ready to go. It's just Trevor and I personally we want to make sure that meat's going to be what we say it's going to be. So if we buy it from somebody else and then resell it on our website, it's basically null and void. We can't guarantee anything. So we are it's our quality control is basically all it is. It's just a control thing. We won't have any bison meat available for probably at least another year. Until we can get something fed out. Like I said, they take a long time to feed out. These guys are very slow, they are on their own time frame. That is for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, in terms of timelines, I wouldn't know what takes longer, what's quicker. So it's interesting to know this about bison. And it also makes sense, right? That you want to wait for it to have your product, right? Because otherwise, if you have other product, your customer gets it, and then one day it looks like this, the other day is going to look like something different. It's like, what's going on here? So
Yeah.
I get that consistency aspect of it. Wow.
Yeah. And that's a big thing for us. And we are very, very, I mean, very, very, very strict about that. We don't allow anybody else's meat. We don't resell anything. Anything and everything that anybody gets is something that we personally raised, and we sat there and watched them every single day for 8 months, 12 months, however long that they were here, their whole life, whatever that is. We can guarantee it here, but that is an issue with a lot of places and a lot of people that do sell meat online. They don't do the same. Basically, they're kind of like a Walmart or Ridley's or whatever, where they just have producers from all over the country or everywhere and anywhere, and you get what you get.
Yeah.
And they can't guarantee the same consistency every time, because they're coming from different facilities and different places, and people feed them differently too. And so just like anything in general, like if you feed an animal a certain way, it's going to taste like what you feed them. If you feed them something that is very, like if you feed them, for instance, like grass-fed, true, actual grass-fed, grass-finished is the key if you want grass-fed, by the way. You have to make sure they say grass-finished. They are going to taste completely different than a grain-finished animal. Completely 100% different. They will not taste the same. And that is because of what you're feeding them and the environment that they're in. Think about it with deer and elk. They're grass finished too, so they have a very gamey and a very different taste. You're going to get the same thing with grass finished piece of meat too.
Yeah. That's very key. Just like knowing that it's grass finished, and you're right. Some of the products that I've had that are grass finished, they do have more of a wild or gamey taste to it.
Yeah.
Haven't tried elk yet, but I feel like I have to. I think
you have to. I love elk. We are wild game. We're wild game people. Like we hunt and fish and all that, and elk is hands down one of my very favorite pieces of meat.
Oh wow, that is interesting. So besides raising your livestock, you're also out there hunting.
Yep. We do like variety. I mean, just because we raise beef and bison, we love variety. I mean, we eat deer and elk and moose is harder to come by. One within the state of Idaho, it's a once in a lifetime tag. So you can't just get a moose every year. So moose is a lot harder to come by, but moose is so good. It's so good.
Once in a lifetime tag. So wait, does that really mean just like one moose in your entire life?
Yep.
What?
Yep. You can shoot one
what
moose.
The heck?
Yeah. The rules are very, very, very regulated for a good purpose. But for a moose, like for a bull moose, it's a once in a lifetime within the state of Idaho. So there are exceptions, like you can pay an astronomical amount of money if you want to get another one, but we're talking like thousands and thousands of dollars. So,
yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Don't like it that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you can go like to another, like we can go to Wyoming and put a tag in for a moose. Like we can go to another state and get moose. Like it's not like you're limited to just getting one moose in your entire life. You just have to go to a different location.
Yeah. I'm just picturing like just using that once in a lifetime tag and then finishing the moose, and you're like, wow, this is it.
Yep.
No more moose.
Yep. It's a sad day.
Oh man.
But you guys have to try it. If you guys haven't tried elk, at the very least, go to like Whole Foods or something and get some elk. It's so good.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, we need to learn how to hunt. That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Come out to Idaho.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
gonna
so
show up.
definitely. So Megan, can you tell us a bit about like the practices you have at the farm? So I read on your website that you follow Dr. Temple Grandin's methods or system. You know, personally, I don't really know much about that, but I'm sure like many people would be also curious to hear
Oh,
what that's
yeah.
about.
Oh man, Dr. Temple Grandin is hands down the neatest woman you've ever met in your life. She's fully autistic. She's a fully functional autistic doctor. She's actually a
Mhm.
vet.
Oh.
She's so amazing. Very, very unique woman. With very, very unique abilities. And so she has the same sensitivities as an animal does. So like cows, sheep, horses, pigs, she can see and feel their sensitivities as if she was one of them. So I have followed her since I was a teenager. And so she's been very, very crucial in how I actually started using her. I started following her when I was a teenager, when I wanted to learn more about how to handle livestock better. Because most people, and I see this firsthand and have experienced it a lot, is a lot of producers, a lot of producers meaning ranchers and farmers that have livestock. Most people picture them handling cattle and sheep and everything very, very rambunctiously, very wild, very like ha 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 ha, just like wild and crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you right now, that's not you. There's cases for everything. That there's a time and place to be rowdy. There's a time and place to be rambunctious like that when you have to. But there's 1,000 times better ways to do this, and that is Temple Grandin's way. And that is, we follow her practices in the sense of we take things slow. We think about things methodically like the animal would, in the hopes of basically keeping that animal as calm as humanly possible. So for our purpose, because we are meat producers, our end goal is to have the best possible piece of meat for every single customer. In order to get that, their whole purpose is to be as calm and as cool as possible. So if we have an animal that is extremely high strung and is always tense, and whenever we have to work them, so if we have to take them in the corrals and move them around or sort them out or process them through the chute, it's a very stressful time. So if we can keep them as calm and collected, where they're not getting rambunctious, they're not getting stressed out, they're not like wide-eyed and just crazy, then that means that those those sensor triggers in their body will not tense up. So they will stay calm and relaxed, just like a person would. So if they get tense, if their body gets super, super, just like a person, if they get super anxious, your whole body gets super tense, and it takes a long time for your muscles to calm down. It's the same with cattle, and it's the same with sheep and horses and pigs. So that in turn eventually affects the product, the quality of the meat. Because those same sensors, like I said, they keep that meat really tight and keep it really tense. So then you get a tougher piece of meat. And you won't get as much marbling in that meat either, because their body's working harder to stay tense. So like I said, the end goal is to keep them as calm as possible, because you get a better product in the end too. Plus, in all honesty, like, it's not fun having to mess with crazy cattle. Like, it's not fun. It's not. So if you can go in, like I can go in any one of my pens right now, and if I wanted to just sort off one steer, just one out of a herd of 50 or whatever we've got out there, I can do it. nice and calm. It takes just a couple minutes and I can get one out of there, and it's super calm and chill and is about as relaxed as you could possibly be. It's pretty boring, actually. But in doing that, it makes for a better atmosphere for all the animals, and it makes for a better product for your meat in the end. And then part of Temple Grandin's other piece to this is her structure of like your facilities. So like cattle and horses and everything, there's certain things that trigger them, that stress them out. And so we have tried to do what we can to design our facilities around her ideas, because it'll make our surroundings a lot less stressful for our animals. Just in the structure of our facilities themselves, it makes sorting them out, moving them around 1,000 times easier. Basically, they naturally flow towards the design that we have. So it makes it as natural, as natural, natural as them being out and never being touched in their life. So
yeah,
that's what we've done. We've tried to basically form our facilities and continue to form our facilities around these designs to make the environment for our animals as comfortable and as calm as humanly possible.
Wow, that's that's very how would you say, just very well thought out. It requires a lot of thinking or planning to do this. And what's interesting too is that you say, you also have a pretty calm and cool, collected demeanor right here, hanging out with us. So I can see it, how you've integrated this into yourself, and I guess into your everyday life. So I'm picturing you kind of just being around the cattle, kind of talking to them, maybe.
I talk to them all the time.
Yeah. But no, I like it. It makes a lot of sense. Media would have you think that in your head you have a lot of like rambunctiousness around cattle, but you're obviously portraying a different picture, which when you explain it, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, oh, of course.
Yeah. Yep. And that's, all the Westerns, even the new shows, Yellowstone, they drive me nuts, because it's like, that's not, some of that is the case where honestly, there are a lot of facilities and a lot of ranches out there that do still are very old school that way, and don't, they're very, very old school that way, like very rambunctious, very rowdy, just, and I'm telling y'all, that is not the way to do it. It is so much quicker, just from experience. It is so much quicker if you can work your cattle calmly and collectively, because you're not fighting them. All you're doing is they're just calm, and they end up working themselves, and all you have to do is just pay attention. So, yeah.
I'm curious.
Nice.
Do you think you could potentially even, like, I don't know how to say it, like think or kind of feel an emotion yourself, like say love, and do you think that the cattle would be able to sense what you're thinking, feeling in that moment?
100%. So they are no different than, literally, the best way for me to explain livestock is just like people. They can feel everything that you're feeling, just like a dog does, or a cat. They feel the same thing. Same with the horses. Like, they all have, whatever you're feeling is the same feelings that you're portraying to them. So if you come in and you're pissed off, and like, you're just fire, blood, bleeding anger, the second you step in that corral with those cattle, they're going to be tense, and they're not going to work right. They're going to basically be just, their eyes are going to be wide-eyed, and they're just going to be just on edge because you're edgy. So if you go in, they feel the same things that you do. So if you're, like I said, if you're pissed, they're going to be agitated. But if you go in calm and collected and just be like, we'll see how this goes. Guess what? It ends up going so much better just because of your demeanor.
Wow. Wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it
they're
is.
super intuitive. People think that they're dumb, and I will say some of them can be very, very dumb, but they're very, very intuitive. They feel just like you and I do. They have feelings too. I mean, I'm not going to be like all that weird person, but they do feel. They vibe off of you. So, if you're crazy, they're going to be crazy too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's very interesting because it really highlights how how emotions, right? I don't know. Maybe because I'm a guy or whatever, or maybe because I'm young, whatever. I'm 31. I don't know. I don't know if that's old, young, but like emotions have always been something that's not tangible to anyone else but me, for example. But it's interesting to see how tangible emotions can be to cattle. Obviously, yeah. So it's not something that doesn't get highlighted, I think, enough when it comes with dealing with animals. Or maybe it's obvious to you, but I guess for an outsider who's not on farms or on ranches, it just doesn't cross my mind. It's like, yeah.
And it's not supposed to. I mean, that's not your job. How would you know? Nobody would know that unless they were either told or they experienced it. But that's why I'm so passionate about this subject, about what I do for a living, because I know for a fact what it does. I'm around them every single day of my life. So if you're around another person every single day of your life, you know them like the back of your hand. It's the same thing with livestock too. I mean, I know these animals so well, and I learn every single day too. There's things I learn every single day. I mean, this is an ever evolving process, but the more Trevor and I can educate other people about this industry and showing everybody that we are here for we are here for them. We're here to give them the best life that they can be, to give you a product that's absolutely amazing. But you also know they were given a great life, and they are here on earth to do a job, and this is their job, and we're going to give them the best that they can for their job.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, healthy animal makes the best product too, right? So a lot of people just get the impression that, farmers are mean people, that they don't care about the animals, but like that couldn't be any farther from the truth. It literally goes against your interest. But I love the way you put it just now. Like, I think you made such a good point. The things you touched on.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, let me ask you this: what do you feed the cattle? Can you tell us a bit about the feeding process?
Oh, absolutely. This is another one of my super love passions. So, my husband and I came up with this program. So they are actually free fed grass. Sorry, still getting over a cold.
Yeah. Thank you for making the time for a call. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. They're actually free fed grass hay. They've got hay in front of them 24/7. So they are always able to eat at any time of the day that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And then we actually have a grain ration that we give them once a day. And our grain ration is something that I will take credit for this. I actually developed over the decades of experiments that I've done over the years of using different grains, seeing what's worked better for the purpose of the end product. I've processed a ton of animals over the years. And so I've been experimenting with what grains work better, which mixes work really well, what to get out of this product and get an amazing product. So what we've done is we have a barley barley and corn base grain that is actually all locally grown. So everything that's in our feed, including the hay and the straw that they get, down to the ingredients in this grain mix, everything is locally based. So it's all grown somewhere here in Idaho. And so we have a local feed mill that mixes everything for us. And it's, like I said, it's a barley and corn base. And we have other special ingredients that are non-GMO and are locally sourced to give an absolutely amazing product. So it's not just corn and it's not just barley. There's other ingredients in there that help the animal process better. Because if you just if cattle's ruminant system is kind of complicated. They have 4 stomachs. Everybody knows that. But just like people, as you guys know with carnivore, there are certain products that make you gassy and there's certain products that make you sick. So it's the same for cattle. There are certain products that their body has a hard time processing. And so if you put in other natural products that their body is that normally would processes easily, then everything flows great and there's basically no sickness, no trouble. So a lot of feedlots, for instance, because we're in that business, a lot of feedlots have a very high corn and oat or barley, different grains that they use, but they're usually typically high in corn. Like corn is their number 1 ingredient. Corn is like our third ingredient. In this grain mix. It is an important product, and they do want to eat it. So people have this argument that cattle don't naturally eat grain. I'm here to tell you, if you put a hay field next to a grain field, I've seen it personally, the cattle will go to the grain field and eat all the grain first. So
that's great.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like, these ingredients that they eat are things that they naturally would eat in general. Like, they want to eat these things. We just can't give them a ton of it because their body will build up with gases and then they'll bloat and they'll get sick, just like people. So, like I said, we have this base, this corn, barley and corn base mix that we have mixed. And like I said, it's a custom mix. So there's nobody else in the country that's feeding exactly what we're feeding. I'm telling you that right now because I'm the one that developed it. And we're constantly kind of tweaking things in the grain to make sure that they're getting the best product and it's doing its job with the animal. It's keeping them healthy. A lot of feedlots and a lot of producers will stick with a very simple grain mix, which is usually like what's called corn silage. Have you guys heard of silage before?
No.
Nope. Okay. So corn silage is actually extremely common in almost every feedlot and every dairy around. And basically, it's instead of taking the actual kernel of the corn, they take the entire stalk, like the entire 12-foot corn stalk, and they mulch it down and they let it ferment. And then that's what they use as their main source of like grain. They use this, what's called corn silage. And so that's what most of these places utilize, is that silage. And it's very effective. It's high in protein, all this stuff. The only issue with it is there's kind of 2 things that we battle here. Is one, Trevor and I have a very small place. Like, we don't have thousands of acres yet. Yes.
Very key.
And so with that space, Trevor and I have to be very, 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 very smart and very cognizant of the space that we do have. Silage takes a lot of space. Like, it takes acres. It takes a lot of space to hold that ingredient. And so we don't have that, and that's not feasible for us. The other issue is it's not nutritionally, it's not the most consistent. And for us, with our industry, consistency is key. I want to make sure our feed that we are giving them every single day is going to be the exact same every single day. If it's not, it's going to affect their weight gain. It's going to affect their health, and it's going to affect just their life in general. Because one, if you don't feed them the same thing, if they get like the silage, the issue with the silage is that it's a great product. I have nothing against it. It's not as consistent as far as nutritionally wise. Like in the beginning, when you first start feeding it in that pile, it's going to have a different nutritional value than when you get to the end of the pile. It could be stronger, or it could be not as strong. And the problem though is when you have that variance, it's like I said, it shoots off the consistency. And then if it's been fermenting too long, it can make your livestock sick. Basically, like I said, they have the 4 stomachs and they can bloat, they get gassy and they bloat. Well, once they start bloating, there's no way for that to release. Like they can't, like people, excuse me for saying this, but we fart. They can't. So that gas builds up and then they can die from bloat. So like I said, there's a lot of things to this that is so important when it comes to nutrition. And nutrition is one of I love it. And so, like I said, the grain ration that they get is extremely specific and it's extremely well thought out so they don't get sick. I have, knock on wood, praise Jesus for this, I have yet to have one animal get sick on our place because of the feed that we're feeding them. They have never, like I said, we're an all natural facility. We don't use antibiotics unless we have to. We will use antibiotics, but they are taken out of our program if they do. And I swear to it, knock on wood, we have never had any issues because of this.
Wow. So yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely fantastic. And it's in just you highlight how food, the feed input for the animal, it's very correlative with their health. I'm wondering if the silage probably causes more bloating. Would you say? Okay.
Typically it does because of the inconsistency. If it's been fermenting too long, then it can cause more gases that they have a hard time processing. Basically, we call it hot. It's too hot for them. And they tend to get sick. So it's kind of like a person, if you eat too much bread that has that doesn't react with you right, then you get bloated. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And then you don't feel good. Or if you have like a dairy allergy, it's the same concept. It's just in livestock.
Yeah. No, I love, so yeah, it makes absolute sense for you to be more hands-on on the feed, even more sense for you to be have that formula, that recipe down.
So I guess that's the secret sauce, right? You can't tell us what else is in it.
I mean, it doesn't bother me at all, actually. I mean, I can, like there's molasses in it. And there's cottonseed. Let's see, we've got some minerals, some salt minerals that's in there too. And there's another special mineral and everything that's in there. So they are very, 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 very well taken care of. They're very, very well handled, well taken care of animals. And the key to like the feed that you're feeding them is making sure that they have the right amount of minerals and vitamins in there to keep them healthy, just in general, just like people, you want to, whatever you're feeding into them has to be the best. Otherwise, if you, just like people, if you feed a kid nothing but candy, you're going to have a very ill child. It's the same thing with livestock. If you feed them a very crappy product, you're going to get a sickly calf, or you're going to get a product that's not great.
Yeah.
And so with that said, it's very expensive. The stuff that we feed is very, very pricey because we want to make sure that they're fed the best to give you guys the best.
Thank you. It's custom, takes a lot. It's going to take more time. It's going to be more resource intensive. But it's all
this is not
for
your average beef.
No.
yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing normal about all like. Well, it is normal. It's just it's our normal.
It's a premium product.
Yeah.
Definitely is.
I'm just going to quickly go over the comments. We have a few. Oscar says, hope you guys are having a good night. Good information as always. Thank you, Oscar. Really appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Oscar.
Frank, who joins, says, I'm late. But thanks for tuning in, man. Thanks for tuning in. Carolina says, OMG. Appreciate it. And Bobby Shane, oh yeah, baby Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
Nice.
Random.
All right.
That's hilarious.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, what would you say to the critics who say grain is unhealthy, right?
Oh,
Because I
man.
think that's the kind of like the mainstream perspective of
It is, and that's been like I said, we follow the carnivore diet. We've Paul Saladino, like we've been on it. Sean Baker, like we're well versed. Trevor and I are well versed and well educated, and continue to educate ourselves daily. That said, like I said, this goes against kind of like Paul Saladino's idea and his thoughts of you know, grass fed, grass finished, and all that stuff. And we understand it, and I respect it. The issue is it doesn't mean it's a better product. And naturally, from experience, because we raise these guys from experience, if cattle had if you put grain in front of their face, like I said, if you put them in a grain field versus a hay field, they're going to go to the grain field first. Naturally, they will eat the same thing. All we're doing is we're concentrating it and giving them a better product so that we know that they're not going to get sick. We know that they're going to finish out wonderfully, all the things. So like I said, there's things to challenge on that. That also too is grain finished. We have noticed there's a study out there from American Beef Association. I think it's ABA. I'd have to pull up. I don't remember where their stuff is. I'll have to pull it up later. But it actually came out that grain finished. So they did like I think it was a 90-day or 120-day experiment where they did grain finished and grass finished cattle, steers, same breed, same time frame, everything. And they did nutritional value between both of them. The grain finished had a stronger nutritional value than the grass finished. And that's been the biggest argument for people is grass finished has a better, higher nutritional value. That's not true. Actually, because, and the whole reason behind this is because grain finished, they get special minerals and vitamins in their feed on top of the grasses that they feed every day. So grass finished, they just get grass. They just get hay year round. And when they say grass finished, guys, it doesn't mean that they're on pasture year round. That means that they have grasses, so hay, in front of their face. That's all that's all that means. So they don't have the extra vitamins and the extra minerals that these other products give them. So when you have a grain finished animal like ours, and others, and everybody's product's going to be different, depending on what they feed them. We feed extra minerals and extra vitamins in their feed also to keep them healthier. And when you do that, those vitamins are going to come through in their meat. So they'll have a higher vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin B complex versus a grass finish, where that's going to naturally be lower because they don't have that opportunity to get those extra vitamins when they eat it. So generally, grass finished will be slightly higher in omega-3, and that's normal. Even in grain finished, they're going to be, grass finished is going to be slightly, and I mean, like, it's a pretty small minimal margin. We're talking like 1 to 2% is all. Like it's very, very minimal. Grass finished will be a little bit higher in omegas, but they're going to be lower in the other vitamins and minerals that are very crucial in meat.
Wow, that is very, very interesting. It's certainly not something I suspected.
It's the first time I hear about that. Absolutely. I mean, generally, we get a lot of so you're familiar with the community, you're familiar with like we call them the grass-fed maximalists.
Yep.
Right? Like it's only healthy if it's this, and we like to push back because obviously there's many reasons to support the farmers who do the hard work, not to discredit them at all.
No,
but,
we're not. We're super open.
Yeah, exactly. But I like a little bit of marbling in my meat. Like, what are you going to do about that?
I know.
Yeah, and just like not all grass finished beef is not the same. Not all grain finished beef is the same, right? So I think like these people who put themselves in this box, I told them like, you should go out and talk to a farmer and like just really get some perspective on like what this really means. Versus like what someone's telling you on reels, right, on like TikTok or whatever, because if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, like you heard it straight from the farmer, right? And we'll have to find that study and share that with the people, because that's a very interesting data point right there.
Yeah, I actually saved it. And it's in my files. So I'll email or I'll send it to you as soon as I can find it. I'll find it tonight and I'll email it to you.
Yeah,
so you guys can share it and see the results that they came up with.
Yeah. Oh my God, people are gonna pop a vein over this. I love it.
There's gonna be arguments. I mean, the extremists are gonna be extreme. I've had this discussion with all of them, and I don't care. You can't question the data. I mean, the data says what it is. And omega-3s are great. Everybody it's awesome. But the other thing is like you also need the other vitamins too in your life. And
I
mean, personally, I don't like grass finished. It tastes like deer. So we're like you. Like I like a marbled and a sweet flavored product, and our beef specifically because of what we feed is going to be more marbled. It's going to be more tender, and it's going to have a little bit of a sweet flavor to it because of the stuff that we feed them. It's intentionally like that. Like we have it intentionally set up that way because we want to make sure our meat is distinct.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
And just another point to address on like the nutritional aspect. It's like, omega-3s, it's nice, but it's like so marginal. The absolute amount is so small either way. I mean, sure, if you put 4 ounces versus 4 ounces, it's probably barely less. But what does that mean? You just have like 5 ounces and that's it, or 6 ounces. You just have a little bit more. And you make up for it. Like, it's not something that people think about. It's just like you just have a little bit more, and you're off whatever nutritional differences you perceive.
And one more point, and I like to bring this one up all the time against the maximalists is, you want that fat too. Like, I mean, especially if you're doing carnivore, if you're doing a keto diet, like. You need that fat. And, I've come across people many times who are doing a diet and, they bought like a grass finished, like quarter cow or something. So that's all they're having. But then they're like, man, the ground beef I'm having is like really, really dry. And I'm having like, a pound of it. And I'm like, well, if you're only having that like really dry ground beef versus like a grain finished pound of ground beef, like you're not getting enough fat. Like, you're just getting a very lean product. You're somewhere around like 40% less of the calories that you need, right? Because you want to make sure you're eating enough fat. So just something for the maximalists to keep in mind, right?
Yeah, and that's been one argument I've had too. I wouldn't say an argument, a discussion I've had in the past too, was that exact same thing. Healthy fats are so important for our daily diets. Same with our livestock. You know, we've got to put healthy fats in their diet to keep them healthy, and same with us. I mean, if you know that the product you're getting, the product that you get in the store, in the grocery store, is not going to be the same product that like we produce. It's a completely different product. I can guarantee everything that we are producing, and I can tell you everything that's happened to that animal, on top of what they've been fed. And so those, you know, their fat contains the same nutrition. You know, whatever you're feeding them goes into the fat too. Mm-hmm. So fat is so, I mean, you need it to survive. You need fat to survive. So might as well put a healthy fat in that you kind of like the flavor of.
100%. Yeah, it's like, in terms of percentages, 70 to 80%, maybe sometimes as low as 60% calories from fat. At that range, it doesn't have to be the same. For us humans, it doesn't have to be the same every day. Some days you want 80%, some days you want 60%. Depends on what you do, how active. Your palate's going to ask something different. But you need the fat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meghan, out of curiosity, do you sell any suet or like fat on your website?
We sell a ton of beef fat, actually.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep, we do. We sell a lot of beef fat. So there is this is a little bit more education for you guys. Suet and beef fat are the same thing. It's the location. So beef suet is technically the kidney fat. So it's the internal organ fat. And that's the purest of fat on an animal that you can get. So when somebody says suet, a lot of people think suet and fat's the exact same thing. It's actually not. Beef suet is actually the kidney fat. And beef fat is just regular, you know, just fat, just like off their back and everywhere else. It's still just as good. I mean, fat's fat, but
yeah,
just so you know the difference, like there is a slight difference between beef suet or just suet and fat.
Yeah. Would you say like if you were to take a bite from just like, I guess, visceral fat versus like the kidney fat, would you feel that difference?
You would. So the suet is a little bit more chalky. And then the regular fat is going to be not. It's going to be like you said, just, you know, biting into a thing of fat. The suet fat is going to be way more. I wouldn't say it's going to be like chalk. It's still going to be fatty. It's just going to be it crumbles.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So I see. I'm just checking your website. So I see you have beef fat trimmings here.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Yeah. We need to get some suet on the shop.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Fat is king.
It is.
So, Meghan, how are you doing with your time? I know we went past the hour mark. I just want to make sure we're mindful of your time.
Nope, you're good. The kids are taken care of, and all the chores are done. Yeah. So I actually set aside a couple hours just in case. So
okay, fantastic. Yeah, because we have a few more questions we want to ask you, and this has been super informative. I thought I knew a lot about meat, but clearly I still have ways to go.
Yeah, can you give me just 1 second? I gotta step away just for 1 quick second.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No
okay.
worries.
Hang on.
No worries.
No worries.
Yeah, take your time. No worries.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have Courtney.
Oh yeah, let's check the comments. Yo guys, you need to go get the Triangle S Livestock. I'm really feeling really pumped about it.
Yeah, I want a lot of fat now.
Yeah, man. Like this is the real deal. Like this is the real deal.
Yeah. Manuel Manuel Maldonado says, "Don't let perfection diminish the goal of eating an ancestral way of eating. If it keeps you away from the so-called nutrient-dense Cheerios, aka Tops." Oh yeah. So he's
Yeah.
referencing that. You've probably seen it, Megan. That like chart from Tufts that has like Cheerios at the top or cereals at the top as like super nutrient, and then beef right at the bottom of the list.
Oh yeah, that's like the recent thing that came out from the CDC, wasn't it? Or was it CDC?
It was all organizations. They're all the same. Um,
They're all the same. Yeah, it was from the Tufts University. I don't think it was directly related to the government, but they're all in it together.
Yeah.
But they literally ranked Cheerios like 90 to 100% score, and like ground beef is like, I don't know, like in red, like 10.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous, and it's
If you
completely
looked at the
subsidized by.
ingredients in Cheerios, holy crap.
You're getting the worst of everything, literally packaged neatly.
It's like you might as well just eat cardboard. It's more nutritious at that point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Do you have any more comments?
oh no.
Any more chats? Okay.
No.
Yeah. So we have a few more questions, but just really curious because many people in the community, us included, feel like a calling to at least like start obviously like learning more about food, talking to farmers, but sooner or later like maybe start raising some livestock just for like our own supply. Could you tell us a bit about like the challenges that you faced when you were starting out, and maybe some of the challenges you still face today as a farmer, trying to like run your business?
Oh, absolutely. We are one of the most encouraging places. Trevor and I are super encouraging to other people. Like, just because we raise them doesn't mean anybody else can't. Like, we are so supportive of other people wanting to do their own thing. That said, it's expensive. If you want to do this as a hobby or as a business, it is an expensive business. And the reason I say that is the animal themselves. So if you take it, so say if somebody wants to do the same thing, if somebody wants to raise one steer the same way that we feed them out, in the same way that we're doing with the facilities and everything, put that into perspective. Right now, and the market changes all the time as far as like the price of cattle.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, say a calf that you would buy to start feeding would be roughly around 600 or 700 pounds. And it would cost you roughly on average about $1,100 to $1,200 just to buy that animal at that weight. Okay. So that's rough, very rough, but that's like the average of what it would cost you just to buy the animal. And if you want to have a facility, doesn't have to be anything that we have, doesn't have to be a Temple Grandin type of facility. It's very expensive that way. If you just set up a couple panels in a little shelter for them or something, it would probably cost you about $500 or so on average, just with panels and kind of a little makeshift facility.
Mm-hmm.
For feed, if you buy feed at the local at the local feed store, hay is extremely expensive, and grains are very, very expensive right now. Gotta love inflation. And I would say, so right now, I mean, every area is going to be different. So, there in New York is going to be a lot different pricing than here in Idaho. But say, I'd say like a bale of alfalfa hay, I want to say average nationwide is about $15 a bale. And one bale is on average about 75 pounds. And one animal will eat an average of anywhere between 25 to 50 pounds a day.
Wow.
On average. Okay. And that's a huge gap, but I'd say a minimum of 25 pounds a day. So you put a third of your bale out every single day. And if you decide to feed grain, you're going to be graining them about 20 pounds a day on average, up and down, depending on the calf. And your average simple, basic, what's called cob, which is a corn, oats, and barley mix, which most feed stores will carry a mix like that nationwide. And that's going to cost you roughly around anywhere between $15 and $20 a bag. And those are 50-pound bags. So like I said, there's a lot of science behind all this, but just rough cost off the top of my head that I can tell you right now, it's going to cost you an average, depending on how long. So say if you feed a calf out for 6 months, which is not very long at that weight, you're going to have about 1,000-pound animal at the end if you only feed them for about 6 months. If you start them out at about a 650-pound weight and feed them for 6 months, let's see, with costs like that, it's probably going to cost you a minimum of about $2,000 minimum of feed, just in feed.
Wow.
Wow.
And that's if you do nothing special. And that's only if you're going 6 months. The longer you feed, the more, the more you're putting into them and all that stuff. But that's going to be about your average.
Wow. Yeah, just feed costs. So yeah, you're still talking about gas, electricity, and water.
Yeah, just the infrastructure.
Infrastructure, all that. Like it's an expensive. It's worth it. I encourage anybody and everybody to do it, even just for the experience. If you've never raised them before, it's always good to have that experience under your belt, just to say, one, that you've done it and you experienced it and you know what it's like. I encourage everybody to do it, just because have somebody there to help you. I mean, I don't do it and just have them in your backyard.
You just wing it.
Yeah, and just wing it. I'm saying, with big animals like that, they are challenging. You've got to have you got to know how to handle them, and you got to know what to do. You got to have trailers, you got to have trucks to haul them around, and there's so many other things involved in this when it comes to raising livestock. On that note, though, if you really want to and you have the ability to raise them and have a professional or have somebody there to help you along the way that knows what they're doing, oh my goodness, go do it. Everybody needs to do it just to get the experience and understanding of what it's like.
Yeah, it is certainly there's something very attractive about raising cattle. I don't know, maybe it's just connecting more with nature, or understanding the natural process of our role as humans here on Earth. I don't know. So it can be very meaningful. So I know my brother and I, it is something that, at least something to feed ourselves, right? Just to understand that experience better. It just feels like it's part of the human experience.
Yeah.
To go through this.
It gives you a much bigger respect for what you consume, even if it's down to, gardening. I mean, if somebody likes to eat vegetables or squash or something like that, I mean, you have a bigger respect for it and a much more admiration for it when you have to raise it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said, calf costs you 1 to 1.2K to acquire. And then, so basically from start to finish, you're looking at over $3,000 of
Easy.
just cost per head. And that's just the calf and the feed, never mind all the other stuff that goes into it.
Yep,
so you feel
including everything else. Plus you also have when you process them, if you're going to have somebody butcher it for you, which is going to be probably what's going to happen, that's going to be another expense too that you have to pay for. So an average, I don't know about nationwide. Nationwide's different, but here in Idaho, at least, your average cost to process a full size beef is going to be around an $800 bill.
Wow.
Just for one animal. So you're looking at close to $4,000 just to produce meat for yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God. And then so you feel like, as a farmer, coming up with this covering these costs are probably like one of the biggest obstacles to overcome, because my impression is it's obviously not an industry you get into like become filthy rich, right?
No.
So it's like it's tough, and the numbers, it looks like tough. I guess.
Yeah.
We have to keep on. You have to keep in this industry and just in business. I mean, this is just general business advice at all. Is you keep on top of your finances, keep on top of where your money's going and where it's and how you're going to make it. Because in this day and age, in business in general, and especially in farming and ranching, your margins are very, very minimal. They're very small. You're lucky to make a 20% profit on anything that you produce. And so what we do with our industry, fortunately, the good thing is we have control over everything that we do here, in the sense of, like, I can't control the price of our feed, because that changes every other, it changes by the direction of the wind. So that said, our margins will go up and down depending on what our feed costs are. And we try and keep them the same as long as we possibly can. Our prices are a lot more expensive than they were a year ago. And that's because of our costs. Our costs have gone up on average of 40% across the board on average.
Wow.
On cattle, fuel's gone up. It's actually gone up. That one's gone up 150%.
A ton. Yeah.
But on average with everything, I think it's 45% is what our average was. So when we do that, then it's like, okay, we can only hold off so long, and then we have to raise our prices up another 40% to make up for that difference. So our, excuse me, our average margin on all of our product is only 20%. It's pretty minimal. But we also, like, for us, our goal is, one, to produce the best product for our customers, but also it not to be so astronomically expensive that you can't afford it. So it's like that happy medium. We know it's expensive. I know it is. We're not blind to that, but we also know it could be a hell of a lot more expensive if we really wanted to. But we are trying really, really hard to find the balance in between, so we can still produce a product for you guys and still be able to afford it at the same time.
Yeah, the thing that really boggles my mind is the lead time, right? The whole time you're raising the cattle. It's not like you can raise something in a day and then sell it the next day. It takes so much time. So the logistics of it is like, how do you even do that?
A lot of planning. We have records like you wouldn't believe. I've got spreadsheets and records for every animal, knowing when they came on this property, when they left the property, how long we feed them out. Like, we have things detailed out, so we know exactly where our margins are, because the longer they stay here, the more expense we have into them.
Mm.
So it's finding the happy balance between it all, but it's also huge on record keeping. With this business, if anybody's going to raise livestock or farm or ranch in general at all, your number one thing is going to be record keeping, having great records, because that's going to be your key to knowing where your money's going. If you're going to be, if you're losing $20,000 that year, you need to look at your records to find out where it's going, because that's going to be where it's going to tell you. Because ours is the same. Like I said, we know the day the animals get here, everything that happens in their life gets recorded. If they get a new ear tag, I record that. If they get a different whatever, every single thing in their life is recorded once they are on our property. For the so we know what's going on, and we know, okay, if they've been here, have we been feeding them out for 9 months? Have we been feeding them out for 12 months? Have they been here for 16 months? How long has this animal been here? And then we're like, okay, as soon as we know that, then we're like, okay, once they reach this mark in our process, once they hit a certain mark, then we know we're losing money on that animal because it's over a certain time period. The longer they're here, the more they cost us. But what Trevor and I have decided to do, because we are so big on our humane, our quality control, and our humane standards are very high. And so we don't, just because an animal's been here for 9 months doesn't mean that they're ready to be butchered. They will stay here until they are physically ready to go. So it may be 8 months. They could be here for 14 months. We don't know, but it's going to be up to that animal. But the thing that we do use is records, because as soon as we know if they've been here for this long, if they say they've been here for 14 months, we record that. And then we also keep that on a record saying, we are not going to be buying that animal genetically ever again, because they didn't produce like the other animals did. So that animal, we have their number, we have the place that we got it from. Those ranches, so say if it came off of a different ranch, they keep those records too. So they know we don't want a calf from that cow ever again because it didn't produce. Like I said, record keeping is key to this industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's very interesting. Yeah. You can even trace it back to where you got the calf from.
Mm-hmm. We trace everything. So, I mean, literally, if somebody asks us, and like I said, we have everything very, very well recorded down to, like I said, the time they were butchered. And I know which animal is in our freezers because of the time frame. We don't keep our animals in our freezers for very long. So I know, like, okay, this animal is butchered. They'll be here for the next couple of weeks until, we have the rotation. So say you just got a shipment of beef. I could tell you which animal that came from, and I could tell you which farm it came off of. I could tell you when we got it, how old it was here, how long it was here. I could give you every piece of information just from the time frame for that purpose. And here pretty soon, let's say pretty soon. It's going to be a little bit. We're actually going to be working on a program, a traceability program where they'll have what's called RFID in them. So it'll be scanned, and basically we'll have everything that's recorded, but it'll be recorded online. And what we're trying to do, and it's very tricky, but we're going to try and do it, is have a scanning ability where we'll have a QR code on all of our products. So on the beef that you received, you'll get a QR code that will basically, you can scan that and you can see the records off of that animal that you're eating.
Wow.
So eventually, that's one of those, it's like, that's an eventually. Trev and I we really want to get that done. The issue that we're coming across is it's very expensive. It's a very expensive thing to do. And so right now, we've only been in business for 3 years. And so we're trying to build up at this point to get momentum to be able to afford that program, to be able to do that. So it's going to be a little bit, but it'll be coming. It'll come soon. So if you see a QR code on all of our meat, you'll understand why now.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen that anywhere else.
Not for beef.
Not that I know.
No,
not for beef.
Not here in the States. They have it in Japan for the really expensive Kobe beef.
Oh,
that they have back there. They do offer it. That's actually where I learned this, and this was several years ago when I learned this. They had came out with a scanning code to be able to, for these people that are paying $500 for 4 ounces of meat, literally, like they're spending $500,000-$600,000 for a little piece of meat, but they can scan, or they can they can tell them where that animal was, what facility, what it was fed, every single thing. They have it. So it's like, oh, I love that idea. So we're kind of stealing it from them.
Wow. Yeah, that'd be pretty. I think people would love that,
Yeah.
It would be amazing. Yeah, you could be able to tell us, was it an Angus or was it an Angus crossbreed? Like,
Yeah, and it'll tell you the weight, like if it
the-
came off of a different ranch. It'll
Yeah.
tell you where it came from, who it came from, roughly. It'll give you kind of like rough information because we don't want to give out personal information either.
Right. Yeah.
And then it'll tell you how long the animal was fed out, if there were anything and everything that was possibly recorded, it would be in that system for you to basically check out.
Mhm.
So that's coming in the distant future.
Yeah. No, that'd be a very cool project.
Yeah. In the age of information, people, would definitely love more information about, the food that they're eating. It is something that we are very curious of, and feels more real, right? When this is the cow, right?
Yeah. And all we want to do, like Trevor and I both all we want to do is educate and just help people understand what they're getting and understand the process it takes. This is not an easy life. This is not an easy process, and nor would we rather have it that like we want it to be. This isn't meant to be for everybody and anybody to do, but we love what we do. And we want people to understand that just because we raise cattle for meat doesn't mean that we're cruel and horrible people.
Exactly.
Like we're just normal everyday people who have an absolute insane passion for this, and might as well do the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, you come across as very compassionate. So, I mean, I've yet to find an evil farmer, right? Because we go around here in Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Rhode Island, here in the New England area, and it's like, where are these people, right? Where is this fantasy fiction characters?
I know. It's just the image that Hollywood portrays. That's basically it. It's just that image, and no offense, Yellowstone is not helping. So
Yeah.
the TV show Yellowstone.
Yeah. No, I haven't watched it, but I'm familiar with the show. So I think we were talking about the processing and like taking the cows to butchering. I think I remember seeing like a piece of news where you were saying that was one of the projects you wanted to undertake. Is that something that you're open to talking about, or something that's still another one of your projects?
It is. It is. Trev and I are very adventurous and advantageous people. Partially crazy. So one of the biggest issues, and COVID came this to light, is processing. Processing is one of our biggest hurdles, and most producers come across nationwide. This is not just here in Idaho. This is nationwide. This is an issue nationwide. So it's hard to get into processors. When you are in, you kind of you're at their free will of whatever they do. It's a tricky industry. And just like any industry in general, there's good and there's bad. So there's good processors and there's really, really crappy ones. And that makes it even more tricky, because with a product like ours, you don't want to go to a crappy one, because they're going to just demolish your product and produce. I can have a beautiful steak, and if it's not cut right, or if it's not aged properly or packaged properly, you will have the crappiest piece of meat just because of the processing. So, like I said, there's a whole bunch to this, but when COVID hit, it just bottlenecked it even more because of the big four. And the big four, I mean the big four major processing plants in the United States. Half of them closed down for 6 weeks. And like they closed down off and on because of COVID. And therefore animals weren't getting processed and blah, 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 blah. It just was a fiasco. So that kind of actually just exploded nationwide. And so here locally, what we have issues with is getting into good processors. And so, and not just good processors, but good USDA certified, USDA stamped processors, because in order to technically legally sell meat nationwide, it should be USDA processed. Anyhow, that said, it's hard to come across those processors where they have availability and they're actually good. So, being that was a challenge for us, we decided to start taking matters in our own hands, as we have been with almost everything in our life. So we decided to start looking into building our own USDA facility and butchering our own in the next couple of years. So we were hoping it would be sooner than later, but as this whole thing exploded since COVID, the USDA, the feds, they have been having issues nationwide getting inspectors. And so we have been told at our region here that we're going to be very limited to getting an inspector for quite a while. So we have been put off from USDA as an advice. We could do whatever the heck we want. But as an advice from them, which we very well respected, was we needed to wait for at least a year, if not 2 years, until they could get us an inspector. And for us, that is the whole sole purpose. We're not going to build a facility and not have it inspected. I mean, we can do custom. We can do custom, which is perfectly fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. We love our custom guys out here. But the whole purpose is to provide that USDA service for not just us, but other local producers that are coming across the same issue as us. And if we can't have it inspected, then it's basically voiding the whole purpose. So we are still working on it. We kind of put it on the back burner for right now because we have other things that we have to tackle. But that said, we are still working on eventually building our own butcher shop. It'll just be a small facility, and we'll probably only process beef and bison. But it will be inspected. So we don't know how big. We don't know when it's going to happen yet. We would hope it would be sooner, but we're kind of at the free will of the USDA, and we have no complaints with them. They have been so great to work with so far, and their advice has been great, and we've been listening to them because they've been great to work with so far. So that said, we're just doing what they said, and we're like, okay, God's telling us to hold off for right now, so we're going to hold off for right now. But it is still in the works. It just will be probably just another couple years down the road till we can get that built.
Yeah. And when you say custom, that only allows you to sell within the state, is it? Like you could still get like a state approved facility?
Yep. So you can do a custom butcher shop, which there's so many of those all over the country, and they are awesome. Our custom guys here are, oh my gosh, they are the best. But technically that meat shouldn't be crossing state lines, and it shouldn't be sold retail. So, I mean, you can get away with it with like buying bulk. So if you buy like an 1/8 or 16th or a quarter half beef, like bulk shares is what we call that, then yeah, you're fine. But individual stuff, like technically it should be inspected. The issue that I have with that is just because it's inspected doesn't make it better piece of meat. That's kind of the issue that all of us have nationwide.
Yeah, I mean,
meat's meat, and there's actually of cases that we've seen where an inspected facility is worse than the custom facilities that we have here.
Right.
So it's one of those really tricky situations where it's just like, this is kind of dumb, but you got to do what the government tells you.
I mean, yeah, it's bureaucratic,
That's
burden.
Basically all it is. That is literally all that is. It's just bureaucracy making things a lot more complicated than it needs to be. And just
Just red
because it's a
tape.
USDA facility doesn't make it better, is what I'm trying to get at. Because I've been in facilities of both, and I've seen both, good and bad, in both sides. So it's just it doesn't make any difference. It's just a matter of what the individual inspector prefers.
Yeah, yeah, and this subject always gets me very interested because, you touched on it yourself. We often hear about how the beef industry is controlled by four companies, right? The beef processing, at least, like four companies own like 80%, if not more, of the processing.
Yep.
How does that affect you? How does that affect the consumer? And what's your perspective on that? Like,
Oh, I've
do you
got
think they
so
make your
many.
life harder?
I've got so many opinions on this. So,
Yeah.
I am not a fan of bureaucracy. I mean, most farmers and ranchers are not. That said, we also have a respect for it too. Like, we do understand why there are inspected plants and things need to be inspected, and you have all this stuff. However, but when they're controlled by four facilities, and by the way, those four facilities are not U.S. owned. They're all owned from other countries, which pisses me off.
That's also
even more.
true. Yeah.
So it's one of
That's
those
a
like,
very good
okay,
point.
yeah, and so it's like, and the other thing too is just because this goes back to just because it's inspected, it doesn't make it any better. Most of your E. coli outbreaks and these bacterial outbreaks are from inspected facilities. So that said, there's no guarantee for anything. And when you have, because those four companies had all these issues over COVID and all that stuff, it made things very, very complicated for the entire industry, for the meat industry in general, for pigs, for chickens, for sheep, for cattle, all of it, all meat. It became very, very, what it did is it basically came to light the issues that we have seen for the last 50 years. And we personally have known it for the last umpteen years, but it didn't come to light until it literally had no choice but to come to light. People couldn't get meat. They couldn't get anything because it wasn't available, because these facilities were shut down. Well, what happens when you shut down people's supply source? Then they start looking to other sources. Then they start looking into it. They start getting curious and start doing research and finding out the truth. And that's what has happened, which I am very grateful for, is people have figured out the truth that these four facilities have literally controlled the beef and pork industry and poultry industry for at least 50 years. And when they control their own industry, what else happens? It bottlenecks everything, where they control the pricing, they control the quantities. They literally have a chokehold on all of it. So the fortunate thing is Trevor and I have control of our own industry. They don't dictate what we sell for, or they don't dictate anything for us because of how we have structured our business. However, 80-90% of all these producers, of all these farms and ranches that are out here producing not just livestock, but also producing, lettuce and other commodities, they are controlled by those companies, because those companies dictate the pricing. They dictate the pricing of everything. So like, they'll dictate the pricing of what they will purchase the products for, and then they dictate the pricing of what they sell it for. So that's the biggest thing that came to light of this is this chokehold, and people seeing it and realizing, holy crap, not only are we controlled by these companies, we're also controlled by different countries, because it's different countries that are controlling these companies. So it was a good thing that came out of that. And now, because of that, there are more and more producers like myself that are taking control into their own hands, and they're doing what we're doing, controlling their own market and able to give a better product out there mind you, it creates more work for us because we are literally taking all the middle people out. We're doing all of it ourselves. But it's getting you a better product, it's ensuring that you're going to have a better product, and it's getting that producer more income so they don't stress out as much. I mean, they're just more financially free that way because they're controlling their own market.
Yeah. And I think, as you said, raising awareness about this, we should be able to see, people finding ways to fight back, right? Or just finding better ways, that helps the farmers and helps the consumers, so that
the whole goal is to help each other out, all of us. It's not just helping a farmer or a rancher or helping a business. It's helping everybody. If we can figure ways to get creative to be successful in general, then all it is making you and I a better person and making us more successful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just better all around, educating yourselves of where your meat's coming from and how it got there. It's huge to have that knowledge base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, on that note, because one of the things you mentioned is you can technically sell a bulk share across state lines, even if it's not USDA inspected. I'm always curious to learn about what creative ways are there to circumvent the feds, right? So say we want to stick it to the big man.
There's lots of ways to do that.
We should, right? Do you have any ideas, or maybe you've seen things that work for other people? Just off the top of your head, creative ways to get around them.
There are my biggest word of advice is to educate yourself in the rulemaking, as far as the USDA rule book on processing and selling, educating yourselves on their rules, because a lot of them, which is welcome to government and welcome to bureaucracy. This is normal. This is not just in this industry. This is every single subject that they cover, is they contradict themselves a lot. And there's a lot of loopholes. Yeah, so I'm not going to go into detail. Yeah, I'm not going to go into detail because I could get myself into trouble. But that said, it's knowing the rules and knowing how to work the rules. It's just like taxes. Mm-hmm. Think of this as just like taxes. If you know the tax law and what to do and what not to do to save yourself some money, it's the same thing for the USDA rule. Same thing with the USDA rule book. It's knowing those rules in and out and how to understand them and know how to work them at the same time legally.
Right. Yeah, legally, of course. Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with the rules, but I'm sure there's got to be
massive rule book. It's this thick.
I need to find someone who can let these come to light, I suppose, and maybe find creative business opportunities where we can exploit these or something. I don't know. Just thinking off the top of my head, but I think something's got to change, right? And we can't just be at the mercy of the big man like that.
Yes. I know we're working on something statewide here in Idaho to work on something like that. We're working on trying to possibly bringing back a state program, so that way we don't necessarily have to do USDA. That would have the same standards, same everything, but it's a state inspection instead of USDA, so we don't have to worry about this. So we don't have to necessarily deal with the feds. Wyoming does this. They have a phenomenal program, and the feds are trying to fight them like crazy. Just typical bureaucracy stuff. I mean, when the feds lose control, they freak out.
Oh yeah, as they should. But
yes.
Yeah.
Well,
do you know about the
Oh yeah, I mean
So,
they should be serving the people, right? And people want beef. Don't get in the way.
Pretty much.
yeah, man.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you guys a quick little story. So when COVID hit, and all these processing, those huge, massive processing plants shut down, it bottlenecked the industry. So there was millions of pigs that couldn't get processed. You guys, these facilities were processing anywhere between 20 to 30,000 pigs a day, every single day. When you have 6 weeks that they shut down, do you know how many pigs that is? They can't process just in one facility? A lot. So that amount of pigs wasn't getting processed. And pigs have a much more shorter duration than beef do. Beef, you can hold them out for several months. If they can't get processed, we can just, all you got to do is hold back the feed, hold things back, and wait, because you can. Pigs don't have that leeway. Pigs are super, super sensitive, and genetically, they've been genetically modified over time. I wouldn't say necessarily modified, but they've been genetically altered to be able to feed out as quickly as humanly possible. So from 0 to 6 months, by 6 months, they're ready to be butchered. So,
Wow.
and have like a 2 to 3 weeks is all you got in that leeway till they can get processed. Otherwise they're too big. And USDA, those facilities have some serious standards, like in the sense of like, they won't butcher any animals that are over a certain weight or a certain size, because it's not to their industry standard, which is a bunch of bullshit. Excuse my language. It's a bunch of bullshit. So when that happens, when you've got these pigs that are in such high production, you know, that they'll gain several pounds a day. When you have an animal that's supposed to be processed at 200 pounds and they can't get processed for 6 weeks, at that point, they're 350 pounds. That processing facility won't take them any higher than 250 pounds or 300 pounds. So they will no longer take them. So what do those farms do? They have nowhere to go with these pigs. That's what was happening over COVID, is you had thousands and thousands, and I'm literally like hundreds of thousands of pigs that could not get processed. And when the facilities opened back up, they couldn't process them because they were too freaking big and they wouldn't take them. So these farms had nowhere to go with these pigs at all. They were literally either giving them away, giving away 300-pound pigs that are ready to be butchered and beautiful and just perfect animals, giving them away to people all across the country just to get them out of there because they had nowhere to go with them. And then if they couldn't, here's the other issue. If they couldn't, they literally had to kill them themselves and dispose of them themselves.
Oh my God.
So we were literally seeing farms, and I dealt with this. I dealt with farmers back there. I dealt with this personally. And we were seeing farms literally mass killing these poor pigs because, one, they were too freaking big. The facilities refused to take them because it was their own damn fault, because they stopped processing. And then because of their own stupid, ridiculous standards, they couldn't take these animals because their standards, they were too freaking big. So they wouldn't take the animals. So these farms had no place to go. And these guys are losing millions of dollars by keeping these animals. If they have no place to sell them, what else are they supposed to do? I mean, a business can only run for so long in the negative.
Yeah.
So at some point, they have to cut their losses. And I'm going to tell you right now, like, these facilities do not want to kill their animals. Like, they don't want to do that. But when you're at a point of life or death, literally, if we don't kill these animals or dispose of them somehow, we are going to go out of business. And that's what their decision was. That was what these farms were faced with. And that's what was happening. They were mass killing thousands of pigs and then burying them or burning them or taking them to a dump. Those are the options that they came with, if they couldn't figure something out. So that said, Trevor and I got involved, and we actually brought in thousands of pigs from from the Midwest that were these farms that were dealing with this exact situation. They were coming across. We were buying the pigs, so we weren't doing that. We were making sure that these guys were getting some money, whatever they wanted, getting some money for these pigs to at least pay for something, and bringing them here and getting them processed and feeding hundreds and hundreds of families here and all over the country. This was happening all over the country, but we were part of that to help give these farms an opportunity to at least breathe and know that these pigs are going to be utilized and they're not going to be disposed of just because. And a lot of the issues, like one of the farms that I had talked to that we bought pigs from, that we did this, he had called me up and asked me if we wanted some pigs, and of course we got a load together and brought them out here. And he had told me that he had like 10 pigs processed. Him and a buddy processed a couple, and they were able to get some into a local butcher, just a local custom shop. Got a bunch butchered. They had about 10 pigs total, and he was trying to donate. This is the bureaucratic BS. Is they were trying to donate these animals to like the local food shelter and like the Red Cross, all these places that need meat. They were trying to donate to them, and they couldn't take it. You want to know why? Because it wasn't USDA processed.
Oh my God.
Yep. That's how much of a chokehold that this is because the shelters are federally funded. A lot of these places are federally funded and they're public. And so because of that, because they're being, it's public, that they have to have legal meat that's inspected, which is a whole bunch of BS, because that meat was beautiful and it was no different than the meat that would have come out of a USDA facility, and they had to dispose of it. They literally had to throw it out because of that. They couldn't give it away. Yep. That made me so furious. I was so pissed when I heard that, thinking you've got about 2,000 pounds of meat sitting there that is ready to be eaten, that is just freshly processed, and they can't take it because it's not USDA inspected.
Nonsense.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolute nonsense. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, that's perfectly fine meat. All that bacon gone to waste. I mean,
everything, all the sausage, all the bacon that they had made, all the chops, everything was disposed of.
Yeah.
They tried to consume as they could, and they donated as much as they could to just people in general instead of going to a facility. But whatever they didn't have room for, they had to just throw it out.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how much waste is in this country, and that's the hard part, is because of that one little thing is what holds a lot of people back.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a self-imposed problem, right?
Yep.
It's like you want to feed the people, but then say you have the food, but you can't. So what sort of world?
Yeah,
it's
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there was obviously an exceptional event, like COVID, the pandemic. So you have to make exceptions to this, right? Food, okay, perfect food, perfect. Feed people, easy. That's it.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, pretty straightforward.
It's a catch-22. But it is what it is, and it's one thing about this industry, about farming and ranching, is when you're in this industry, you have to be one of the most flexible and open people, because it's an ever evolving business.
Yeah. For these scenarios, a lot of flexibility, and I don't know. That's so frustrating. It's I don't know. I'm frustrated.
Yeah,
And,
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it's long done and over with. It's just that one situation during COVID, and
Mhm.
COVID was stressful enough.
mhm,
But
mhm.
learning that and just realizing all these things COVID exposed, which was a
Right.
good thing. Like, this is a good thing. It's a good thing that we learned this, that these facilities can't take this because it's not us. But like, okay, obviously something needs to change. So then we need to start changing something. And that's kind of something
Mhm.
that everybody's kind of working on right now. But it's just everything came to light. Like, all these things were exposed during COVID, where it's like, okay, we needed to do something about it. And we knew this was something. So now we have to do something at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note of, COVID and the big man, there's been a lot of talk about beef getting vaccinated with like these novel mRNA jabs. Uh, do you know anything about this? Do you have a
I
perspective
do.
on this? Is this in the US that it's gonna happen, or is this just like Canada or like Australia? Like I'm not really sure, but it's been
US
going
isn't
around.
yet. US isn't yet. And the only time, here's the thing with the vaccines. Vaccines are only required if you're part of a certain program. So technically, like
Mhm.
for us personally, we have our own personal standards, but it's not part of like a certified program. If you have like a certain program that a rancher is a part of, and they do that for marketing purposes, so they can market their product they can market their beef at a higher price, supposed to be a higher price. Okay.
Mhm.
That's usually not the case. But if a ranch or a farm is certified or would like to be certified under a certain program, then they have to follow their guidelines just like any other program that anybody would follow. That said, those programs have their standards and their guidelines, which means that they also say or don't say that they have to be vaccinated with these certain vaccines, or there's other programs where you do not vaccinate at all. It just depends on the program that you're a part of. And if you want to be like for JBS and the big four facilities, they have certain things that they require in order for them to contract, because they only work off of contract. You can't just drop beef off to them every day. You have to have a signed contract from them for them to buy your animals, for you to drop off your animals at their facility. So
Mhm.
that said, they have their standards and their requirements of what your animals have to have. They have to have these certain vaccines, and they have to have these certain hormone injections is what they require. So the absolutely only way that would be a requirement is if certain programs require it. That's the only way that would work.
Gotcha. Yeah. Wow, we're gonna have to dig into that because plenty of people they're concerned, right? Because do we have a choice over what's going to be put into our food? Like, what is going on, right?
Yeah.
And are we going to know when it happens? If it happens, if it's happening already, like.
So it's
But
not
this is a
yet.
good point. Yeah.
And it could be privately, like maybe at like universities where they're doing testing. Universities are always doing testing. So I wouldn't doubt it if maybe some universities are testing it, but it's not here in the States as a requirement. At least not yet, for whatever standards that these people produce. However, I'm going to tell you this right now. most ranchers and stuff probably wouldn't do it anyways, unless they were absolutely forced to, because most of us aren't huge on over vaccination. Like, we'll vaccinate for the typical diseases because you need to. Livestock are different than people.
Mhm.
And there are diseases out there that are super, super strong and super prominent nationwide that we do need to keep a chokehold on. Otherwise it'll destroy the population. So there are certain things that we do need to, be cognizant of. However, most guys are not big on over vaccinating. One, because it's freaking expensive. Vaccines are expensive. They're very expensive to purchase. So the least amount that we have to put into that animal, the more income for us.
Mhm.
Plus, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's a relief to know.
yeah. So yeah. Look, so obviously, yeah, get to know your farmer, see what the perspective is on the vaccines. Right here, we have one that is very hesitant, obviously, because if you can keep the cattle healthy, there's no need. So um, there we go. We have Meghan Stark, who can provide you untainted beef.
Yeah.
Guarantee, I can tell you that.
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, so if there's a concern, then you at least know someone now that can provide you that.
Yep. Biggest thing
Absolutely.
takeaway is just educate yourself and be open-minded. Be openly educate, like open education. Don't be closed-minded and thinking that one way is the only way. Just keep an open mind, whatever you do, and educate yourself and keep an open mind to that education.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Never stop learning.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we got through all the questions. Yeah. We ran a bit long. We're past the 2 hour mark. So, I think we should wrap it up. We'll let Megan get back to her stuff. I'm sure she's very busy. But, Megan, thank you so much for your time. This has been super informative, really, really educational stuff. And, I really hope the listeners out there and the viewers just get a lot of value. I think they will, because I certainly did. And, we spend a lot of time learning about these kind of things, but this conversation has been just phenomenal, like super interesting. I feel like we could go on for another 2 hours, but
Probably. Maybe another time.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
definitely another time.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you? You want to do your plug?
Sure thing. Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This has been so great. And I apologize, Trevor wasn't here. He's out of town working right now. So he apologizes, but maybe next time.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you guys. And thank you so much for this opportunity. If you want to plug into us more, we're all over social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We've got Pinterest. All over the place. We have our website, qualitynaturalbeef.com. Pretty much as accessible as you could humanly possibly think. And just a little plug in here, if you don't mind. We're actually starting up a small business interactive online course that's going to be starting on March 1st. So for any small business, any hobby farmer, farm, ranch, doesn't matter your experience or your size. This business course is for you on how to start or expand your business.
Wow, sweet.
Nice. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So you definitely got lots of projects going on. Amazing.
Always. Like I said, we're nuts.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I mean that's the drive. That's the entrepreneurship drive of always be creating and always exploring and advancing, and just always progressing and growing.
Always.
So that's an excellent quality. But again, thank you, Megan. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the time. You hung out with us for like 2 hours and 15 minutes or something. Wow. So really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you
Anytime.
very
You
much.
guys are the best.
Yeah. You guys are the best too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
But yeah, we'll wrap it up. Everyone go buy some beef from Triangle S. Not your average beef. This is all natural. You heard it for yourself. This is a premium product, guys. So go pre-order your Beefalo shares. How about that?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we'll stay in tune. And you can use our code BUTTER5 5% off. And you've got other discounts on your page. If you sign up for the text newsletter, things like that, I believe you can get extra discounts on the page. So everyone, head on over qualitynaturalbeef.com. Fantastic. That being said, I think we should wrap it up.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
You too.